to the Scottsdale Vibes podcast. I'm Alicia Haygood. As you've heard me say dozens of times before on this show, we are a very successful city here in Scottsdale. Entrepreneurship is raging around here, and I love it. It's why I feel like I can be successful here. It's what I have gravitated towards when it comes to being a small business owner. But one of those things that really stands out so unique to Scottsdale is that we genuinely care about each other and want everyone to be successful. And with that comes talking to other entrepreneurs, learning from them, having a business coach, having an open mind, and the willingness to just put yourself out there. And one of those people is none other than Allan Draper. He is a huge success story here in town. I can't wait for us to just dive in. We are going to learn so much. Get your notebook out, get a pen, get ready to go. Don't forget to check out this episode on our YouTube channel so you can remember things, come back to whatever you need. But this is a lesson to learn, and I'm so excited to do it with you all. So stay tuned. We'll be right back with Allan Draper right after this break. Entrepreneurship isn't for the faint of heart. And as a woman who owns 2 businesses, raising a family, and I still really enjoy my downtime in life's adventures, it can be a lot. But man, do I love seeing my hard work come together and really just take off. And Allan Draper came from a town of 2,000 people, put himself through law school where he found great success, but with success isn't necessarily come fulfillment. And that's when he decided to take a leap. He moved his family to Detroit and started a pest control company with his brother. Not part of his success plan, the company failed. But like any good entrepreneur, he knew that it was time to try again. Learn from one's mistakes and find the winning formula. And winning he is. Proof Pest Control is now valued at over $60 million. And like any successful business owner, Allan knows it takes a team, and that's why he's giving back to our community to help other entrepreneurs find their success story too. So Allan, I'm seriously, I just told everyone to get out their paper and pen, but I'm just going to re-listen to this episode over and over. I'm so excited to have you here at the table with me, learn from you, learn about you. And as I kind of said, it takes a special person and not the faint of heart to be an entrepreneur. Some people, I feel like you hear the stories like, oh, I started a lemonade stand at 6 years old and that's all I've ever wanted to be as an entrepreneur. Yep. I didn't have that feeling. It sounds like you didn't either. So when did that entrepreneur bug like bite you?
You know, the more I get into it and kind of view the type of person I am, the more I realize that it was always in me.
Okay. Yeah, I see that.
I just, I had to discover it when, and I think back when I was a little kid to raise money for my, Little League baseball team, I would sell chocolate candy bars door to door. Oh, yeah. I would go to the neighbors. I would offer to rake their leaves or shovel their snow or mow their lawn. And so I had a newspaper route. I did a bunch of that stuff. Kind of, I was hustling since, I was 7 or 8 years old.
Okay. So you had it in you from the beginning then. You just didn't realize it.
Yeah, I think my level of the type of entrepreneur that I am is it's not a job. It's in my DNA.
I love that.
This is like, it's like, I like golf. I like nice cars. I'm an entrepreneur. It's not like a job. It's not, and I think there's a spectrum for entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
Not everyone's like me, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But I'm for one of my companies, we were thinking about employing this personality test. I can't remember what it was called, very mainstream. And they used me as a sample to show me how it worked and to kind of read what type of person I am. And the person that was selling us this program, I could tell she was a little nervous after, right before she read my results. And she's like, Allan, yeah, you're basically unemployable.
What?
And I think she didn't think that was a good thing, but I was like, yeah, I am.
Well, does that explain like how you became an entrepreneur? Like that's just proof of it in my mind.
Yeah, it was like one of the best compliments besides husband, father. That's like, you're unemployable.
Your wife's like, yay.
Exactly. So, although I have had jobs, I could practice law in Phoenix for a while. I went to Arizona State law school. So I can do that, but in my heart, I just like building stuff.
Yeah. Well, I think that says something. I too have worked for jobs. I never thought I had that entrepreneur bug. I worked for companies forever. I've been in the television industry forever. So I always worked for news stations, sports agencies, like all this kind of stuff. And then it was like, I'm so tired of working on their hours. I have young kids. I wanted to be a part of their life. That's where the entrepreneurship for me, it was a more balanced life for me. But it still takes so much work, almost more work than if you were just working for someone, let's be real. So let's start at the very basic, because when I started my businesses, I literally Googled how to start a business in Arizona. What is the first step to really just taking that initiative? Because, I mean, it could go start as first as the idea and from there, like, I don't know.
Yeah, I think the ambition comes first.
Okay, I like that. Yeah.
You have to have the intent and the motivation. And I make a lot of social media content. I'm almost always doing something, but I really can't stand the current state of social media as it relates to entrepreneurship. 90% of it is fake.
It is.
Maybe more. And so I'm on this mission to like show people what it actually takes. And so when I say, hey, you have to start with the ambition, that is an informed decision. That is not, hey, I want to be rich and I want to be free. I was practicing law downtown before I started my bug company, before I moved to Detroit, started my bug company. And I remember thinking, I can't wait till I start my first company because two things, I'm going to be rich and I'm going to be free. I'm going to have more money. I'm going to have more time. And it took me less than a couple of days in my new endeavor to realize that both of those things were not true.
Right?
I had less money and I had less time.
Yeah, it's true. And let's talk about that, because one thing when I started my companies that I really unfortunately focused on too much was one word, and that's fear.
Yeah.
You know, fear is a word that unfortunately we live a life in.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you, I remember sitting, I had a girls' weekend here in town. We were doing a staycation. I was on the hammock with one of my very best friends of 25 years. And I was like, Kelly, like, how did you overcome this failure? And she's like, why do you keep asking about all my failures? You've never asked me about the feeling of success. And I was like, oh, I was diving into the fear of failure that I never took the next step to even try. How do you overcome that fear? Because ambition is the first step. And I had that ambition. I had the desire. I had the want. But then fear came in my heart and my brain. And it really honestly took me back months of where I could have been, I feel like.
I love talking about fear.
Yeah.
Because fear is a survival mechanism.
Yeah.
So in our old cavewoman brain, there used to be saber-toothed tigers out there hunting us.
I mean, seriously, yes.
Right? So any risk back then usually meant death.
Right.
We would either not have enough food, water, disease, whatever. And fear, getting beyond that, I think most things in life, regardless of your ambitions, was to start a business or be a professional athlete or raise a family, it's, fear lies between you and what you're trying to achieve.
I love that.
I think a big part of it is to identify it, not ignore it, not try to kind of sweep it under the rug, recognize it. I love the idea of looking at worst case scenario, right?
Yeah.
And identifying what you're afraid of. A lot of entrepreneurs, they're not afraid of failing and coming up short because of themselves or their family. A lot of it's what other people think. And if they realize that and they kind of verbalize it, they're like, do I care that much? That I care so much about what other people think that I'm going to allow that to stop me from living my life's potential? I think if you put it in, you recognize for what it is, say, hey, fear's such a good thing. It keeps us, from falling off of cliffs and things like that. But what's the worst case scenario? Is my family going to be okay? We're going to be okay. Worst came to worst, I'd get a job, I'd put food on the table, whatever.
Yeah.
Is anybody going to die, right?
No, it's true. Yeah.
And so I love talking about fear. I'm a very, very high risk taker. In terms of like money, business, case in point, at the time I've been investing in real estate for almost 20 years now. Before I quit just if you think about my story, I had a well-paid legal job in Phoenix. I quit to move to Detroit to become a bug guy. Right. Just that, the people that had the hardest time understanding why I would do that were my law school classmates because they saw what I went through.
Right.
But so I function kind of differently where I'm like, I moved into a small 2-bedroom apartment with my 4-year-old and my 2-year-old children. And my brother was sleeping on the couch. And 2 weeks before that, I had a well-paying job, right? So, but I think I love talking about fear, especially in the context of entrepreneurship, because very, very rarely, almost never, is the fear of something commensurate with what could actually happen. Our minds just go, they're so creative, they just go crazy. And it's like, my life's going to be, it's like, no, it's really not going to be.
It is true. I've never thought about that. Well, fear goes into what you just said a few minutes ago, Allan, about social media. I mean, let's be honest. When we look at social media, no one's out there posting their bad days or their failures that day, and everyone says, and I believe this wholeheartedly, like focus on the good things that happen so you don't let the fear, but you have to learn from those. How has social media affected our fear, tactic when it comes to entrepreneurship in life?
Social media is so terrible because it makes it look like everything's a success. And so then when somebody tries and they fail or it doesn't work out exactly as planned, they think they're doing something wrong. And the thing is that our failures and our hurdles and all those things, that's the path. That's the correct path.
Yeah.
But they see these like 20-year-olds with Lambos. And don't get me wrong, like I love cars. I have some really, really nice cars. But I don't do that for them. I don't do it for Instagram. I don't do it because I care what people think about me. I do it because I like them. Yeah. Right. And so, especially Instagram, it's like, everything on there is everybody's like best day or the very best part of their day. Mm-hmm. And so I'm trying to incorporate a little more of that reality into, it's freaking really hard to start a business. And the larger the business gets, the more difficult it is, but do it anyway.
Yeah. Listen, I mean, I have some of my best friends that will see me on Instagram doing things like, oh my gosh, Alicia, you're doing great. You got invited to all this stuff. It's like, right, but y'all don't see the hours of hustling I've been in, the months of work it took me to get one email answered and all of that. But I believed in it and that belief in me, and it'll take off eventually. I had another guy that, one of these YouTube guys that was on a podcast, I was listening to him, and he's like, everyone thinks that I just got 10 million followers overnight. It took me 10 years to get here, but I never stopped because I knew one day it would work. An entrepreneur has to have that dedication, and you have to believe in yourself, and you've shown that. So how have you turned in an idea into success and continued on with that success for other businesses?
So I'm an angel investor, and a lot of people come to me and they're like, hey, I have this great idea. And I'm like, you can take your idea and beat it because that means absolutely nothing. Yeah. Everyone has a good idea.
It's true though.
So for me, like when I create a plan, it's rarely what it ends up being. Okay. So, you start with an idea, but kind of going back to where we started, you got to have something more than the idea. Mm-hmm. So when I'm investing in a company, and I think this kind of sets the table for the question that you asked, I look at 3 things. Number 1, I look at the founding team. And specifically regarding the founding team, what I want to know is, after the worst day of their professional life, what are these guys going to do? Mm-hmm. Are they going to pack it up? Are they going to, or is there something higher at play? And I've seen that. I wrote a check for $200,000. Founders weren't what I thought. They closed up shop. It was terrible. I should have just went and got cash from the bank, lit it on fire. It would have been more enjoyable. But that's number 1 is, are these the type of people that will try again because they're going to get punched in the face? They're going to, all these terrible things are going to happen to them. Their family's going to be, struggle, all these things. Yeah. And then I look at the team that's around them. So founders, then the rest of the team. Okay. And then I look at how they manage cash. If you've got those 3 pieces, man, that's a good investment. Okay. And so when I'm building something, that's what I'm looking for. Who are going to be my co-founders? I own 28 businesses right now. I have 21 business partners. A lot of times people will say, hey, Allan, how do you do all this? You have small kids, you coach their football team, all this stuff, active in your church, all this stuff. And it's like, well, first of all, I don't do it by 100%. Myself, right? I rely on all these, these other people. And I think that kind of completes the story. It's a lot of just being around the right types of people.
You talk about that a lot, and that is, you have like 3 keys to success, and it's the people, it's who you surround yourself. What did you say? What policies that you set up and procedures at the beginning is the key to success as well. I tell everyone I don't do anything by myself. I have, as small as a podcast and for the magazine that I own, I have a team behind me. There's nothing I do by myself. And I haven't from day one, because that's not the key to success. You miss little things, right, if you're not doing that. How do you pick the people to surround yourself with that you are the keys to set you up for success? And with that, how do you feel about the whole family and friends dynamic of working with you?
Yeah, so some great questions there. And things that don't seem as common sense as they are.
Yeah.
So first of all, my way of picking a partner, and the way I've set up a lot of my businesses, not all of them, is I'll inject cash, I'll come up with kind of the basis of the idea, get some of those structures, policies, and procedures in place, and then I'll find an operator. So I'll find somebody that has technical knowledge. I own a digital marketing agency. I know a little bit about marketing, but nothing compared to my partner, Matt.
Right.
So he's a day-to-day, runs the company. He's the operator. What I look for, number one, is kind of going back to a founder when I'm doing angel investing, when I'm investing in a company. What is going to happen? How is he going to react when we have the worst day? We think it's over. People are quitting. We're losing client, all those things. How's he going to react? That's number one. And then probably a mile and a half behind that is, what's the experience? What are the things that he brings to the table?
Yeah.
So that's how I go through the process of looking for, specifically for a partner. With other people, I look at, I care a lot about my mind. The things I'm thinking about, the things I'm talking about.
Okay.
So when I'm surrounding myself socially or otherwise in business, looking to partner with a company or something, I look at those individuals and I say, do I want to be like them in any specific way?
Oh, okay. And
if the answer is no, then the answer is no. And I'm very deliberate with who I spend my time with.
Good.
And so that's a big part of it. Now, you asked about friends and family. So my very first business partner was my brother. So do I recommend that for everybody? Absolutely not.
I kind of had like this no family friends rule personally. And for me, it's because at the end of the day, it is a business, and some people have a hard time separate that, and they don't like the directness or when they're told to do something. It's like, this is a business.
Yep. And
so I kind of have a very anti-friends and family outlook for me personally.
And there's nothing wrong with that. And I think that's the safer route, although entrepreneurship's not safe. That's the wrong word to use for any form of entrepreneurship, regardless who your partners are. But what I do want to caution people against is the low-hanging fruit, which happens a lot.
Yeah, it does.
So, hey, I already know this person. I already trust this person. I'm related to this person. Man, that you could have some really awkward Christmas dinners and get-togethers if that goes wrong. So I think the default should be, like you said, the default, no friends, no family.
Yeah.
There has to be a very specific, set of circumstances and reasons why. And the relationship has to be very clear, like, hey, here are the duties. But even then, you can do... But this, to be honest with you, so I have relative business partners, I have non-relative, I have friends business partners, non-friends. I like to consider myself a partnership expert because it's something I really struggle with and I'm very cognizant of and I'm always working on. Not because I'm like awesome at it.
Yeah.
And I've been doing it for years.
Yeah.
But I've screwed up some partnerships.
Yeah.
I've done some really dumb things. I was speaking at an event just this past weekend and somebody asked me what one of my biggest mistakes was. And it's about my relationships for sure. So I think that's a great question. And I'm 100% okay with your trajectory, with your way of doing it, where it's no friends, no family. I have no problem with that.
Yeah. I do have one family member. It's my husband, and
that's different.
Well, he's in finance, so keeps my books and stuff like that. For him, but there was a time last month where like I literally looked at him and I was like, listen, this is my ownership hat I'm putting on right now, and you need to listen to me. And I have a problem with what you're doing. I'm not liking it. You're not working on my schedule. I'm giving you this 1 month, and if it's not, then we're paying someone to do it. And he's like, well, this is not a cost that we can really afford in the business. I said, well, then step up and do it because you volunteered for this and I'm done. I'm not losing my marriage over it, but I'm not losing my business over it either.
Yeah.
And he did it, but it was a hard conversation. And you know, I also, for some of those things too, I think you can take advantage of friends and family.
Yep.
The way you talk to them, treat them, work with them, because you already have that intimate personal connection. And I think that's not healthy either. So for me, it's one of those things where like, I need to be a boss, I need to be a leader, and I need to do what's right for the business. And sometimes you can't do that when you have a personal, intimate connection with someone, whether it's friends, family, or anything in between.
I like that you were able to say that to him.
Yeah.
I do, because one thing that people don't understand about business is that, and this is going to come across as very harsh, and I love the people I work with. I love my employees. I always say that if I take care of my employees will take care of my customers and clients, and my customers and clients will take care of me.
100%.
I always say that. That being said, the business comes first.
Yeah.
Has to. And here's why. And people have a hard time with this. If the business doesn't come first, then what results is layoffs, dissolution of the business, whatever. It's not that the business is more important than people. It's not. That's not the case. It's because the people are so important that your business has to come first. And this really comes into play when you've hired the wrong person or you have the wrong business partner or whatever. Mm-hmm. Because you say, okay, let me think about my priority list. Well, business is number one because people are so important that all these people that work for me or our partners or our vendors, I want to make sure that they're okay. And I hired the wrong person and that person's got to go. If you put people first, then that person doesn't go, then your business suffers, then all the other relationships suffer as well.
That makes a lot of sense. And that's hard because I've learned that I'm an emotional person. I think I'm not. I kind of put a hard face on and stuff like that. But when it comes down to it, I've had to let a couple people go because they weren't the right fit. And I kept them on too long because of the people aspect, not the business aspect at the end of the day. And that I regret. And so that's why I talked to him first and got in there.
Smart move.
You talked about investing. I listened to one of your former podcasts and you talked about invest in your business before you invest in your financially. If you want these nice cars, if you want this nice house, it only comes from investing in your business. Talk about that because you had $1 million price tag is what you kind of said. Mm-hmm. That can be hard for some people to consume in this day and age when the housing market's crazy, gas, groceries, all of that. Talk to me a little bit about that and how we get there for that point.
Yeah, so I've created over the last 20 years, I've read several hundred books about wealth and building businesses. Mm-hmm. And from those books, I have kind of distilled, I didn't come up with them, but I've put together a list of 10 laws that govern money. I believe that money is governed by laws just like our physical world. Mm-hmm. So if I climb the top of the building, we have a pen in my hand, I reach out and drop it, all of us know what's going to happen. It's not going to go left, it's not going to go right, it's not going to go up, it's going to go straight to the ground. And I believe that there are laws that govern money, and I've been following those laws for the last 10, 15 years. One of my laws is that you do not buy any significant toy, like a really expensive car, a really expensive house, boat, whatever, until you have $1 million net worth. And the reason why is, and that number probably should go up because inflation has $1 million isn't what it used to be. And the reason why is because another one of my laws is that you save 10% of everything you make and you never spend it. You can invest it, but you can never spend it.
Okay.
And if you're not in a position to do that, and a lot of people aren't because they go buy an expensive car, right?
Well, you talk about the 20-year-olds with the Lamborghinis and stuff
I hate that. I can't stand that.
Right, I mean, that's what made me think of it when you said that.
That's exactly right. When I see a nice car, I just automatically think that person's broke.
I do too.
And I drive really nice cars and I'm not broke.
But I get it.
There's 5% of people that drive really nice cars that are wealthy because people are buying those things before they're wealthy. The difference is once you're wealthy or once you have an amount of money where you can continue to invest and to continue to build your net worth, then you go buy that stuff. You're buying that stuff with interest anyway. You're going to be writing a lot of that stuff off. It's going to be, it's not an investment, but it's not this crazy liability. This, I saw an M5 BMW, $100,000, $110,000 car, and it had a Domino's thing on the top of his drive. That's the wrong picture that Instagram is painting.
I've seen the same thing.
Yeah. So, and a lot of times young folks will justify it as an asset. Like, hey, if I drive this nice car, then people are going to want to do business with me. It's like, and there is some truth to that, but let's do first things first. Let's learn how to crawl before we work on walking.
Yeah. And your car smells like pizza. Like, let's be real. No one's going to get in it.
Exactly.
We've talked about surrounding yourself with those that matter, investing in your business. What do you do, Allan, to start your day to be your best version of yourself? Because I'm a firm believer, it starts from inside, and how you deal with yourself portrays onto your family, your friends, and then your business from there.
For sure. I have a pretty cliche morning routine. So I'll wake up about an hour before the rest of my household. I'll spend some time in like spiritual preparation. I do some journaling. I go through a process. One of my most important pieces is, and keep in mind that I'm a very logical thinker. Okay. I'm a numbers guy. I went to law school. There's a lot of logic involved in that. But I go through this practice of visualizing having achieved the goals that I have set. So, for example, I have goals in 7 different areas of my life. And one of those areas is my family life. Mm-hmm. It's really important to me. Mm-hmm. And so I'll imagine myself 10 years down the road, and I'll imagine my kids. So my 11-year-old, I'll imagine having a conversation with him, but he's not 11, he's 21 now.
Isn't that crazy to think about, first of all?
It stops me in my tracks for sure.
Yeah.
And so I'll imagine, like, what's he talking about? He's not talking about his Little League baseball team. He's talking to me about maybe, what's he going to do for a career, or somebody that he's dating, maybe thinking about proposing, whatever, right? And I put myself in that scenario, and I'm like, well, what's the relationship that he and I have? What are we talking about? Is he asking me for advice? Is he wanting to come talk to me? Are we hugging each other? Those types of things. And then when I open my eyes after this visualization, it changes what I do that day. So that when he comes to me and he didn't take the garbages out or didn't do his chores or whatever, it puts things in context for me so that I can see the path to get to where I want to be. So that's a really big part of my morning routine. And so I knock all this out before, then I'll go wake up my kids. I'll spend about 45 minutes with my kids before they go off to school. I'll work for another hour, usually emails, putting out fires for my businesses. Then I'll hit the gym, and then my day's kind of
I like it. We kind of do the same thing. I've actually started doing that since the beginning of this year. That was one of my goals, was to get me back as a first priority. I was kind of putting the business and growing it because I just took over the magazine last summer. So it was like getting in, diving in head first. You're putting everything in it. And I realized I was losing myself. And with that, lost my patience. With that, lost a clear mind to make better decisions when it comes to business. So I, too, have started waking up, meditating for 10, 15 minutes by myself, reading again, which is something I hadn't done in a while. And it has completely changed my day. It has completely changed who I am as a person, to my family, friends, and the business decisions are coming more clearly. I'm able to make them better, I think, rather than second guessing things. So I totally respect that. And I think everyone should really start their day with you and only you.
For sure.
And whether that means waking up at 5 o'clock, 5:30 or whatever it is, like, it matters and it makes a difference.
No, 100%. I always say that your business and the level of your wealth will never surpass the level of your personal development. So if you want your business to improve, the best investment that you can make is in yourself.
Yeah.
You want to make more money, invest in yourself. And so, and you have to do it consistently. You have to do it when you don't feel like it. And I say that enthusiasm is common, but endurance is rare.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about endurance. It kind of leads me to my next question. I'm a firm believer, the second you feel stagnant in your business and that everything is great and running smoothly and you can take a step back, that's when you're going to get slapped in the face with something that you weren't expected for. How do you overcome that stagnant feeling and make sure that you're always prepared for what's next?
Growth. Okay. If you're scaling a company, you are not comfortable. And if you're scaling it at a level where it is comfortable, you're not scaling it fast enough.
Okay, yeah.
Because if you're scaling a company, your marketing's going to be moving, you're hiring new people, you're experiencing new problems. And so that's been my way. And you're 100% right. I love that. Like if you're comfortable, and I actually think this is true of any area of your life.
I can see that.
If you're comfortable physically, you go to the gym and you're really not really breaking a sweat. It's because you've become so physically capable because of past workouts which isn't a bad thing, but continue to push yourself.
Yeah.
And it's the same way with our relationships. It's financially, make sure that there's some level of discomfort and struggle. A lot of us try to do things to avoid struggle, but the interesting thing is that's where the growth is. So if you want to, lay on the beach the rest of your life, go for it. That's not who I am.
Right. No, I don't think that's who you are at all.
No. I think it's a really good point. And I've done it with my businesses through growth, because you're going to find the struggle. And the larger that you get, the more you're going to find those things. And you're going to notice like competitors start to say stuff about you or whatever. And I think that's a great sign.
Yeah. Okay. That's good. I kind of live by that. One of those things that you were kind of talking about is, now you have a successful pest control company, you do a digital marketing company, you're a real estate investor, you have pest control classes. Now you're here to help 10,000 entrepreneurs. Tell me about this, because this is like your new passion project, and this is really coming from the heart, I feel like, with you. Yeah.
So my top level professional goal. So it's been a few years since I've had to work. I don't have to work anymore. Mm-hmm. I do it because I love it. And what's interesting is that when I started to do it because I love it, I got really, really good at it. Yeah. I got really good at building businesses because I didn't have to do it anymore. And I have more energy. And anyway, like that, it's something that I really care about. But my top level professional goal is to help 10,000 people make short-term sacrifices to build businesses and wealth. That's my thing. And I say it like 15 times a day so that it's cemented in my brain. And the reason why the sacrifice is such an important part is because it is required. It's one of those laws. You have to sacrifice. You look at folks that, they got a windfall from their family, right? Somebody passed away and they inherited some money, or the folks that won the lottery. Mm-hmm. It's easy come, easy go. It really is. So if I can show people like, hey, this is going to take everything that you've got and then 10x, it's going to put pressure on your family. It's going to make you're going to have to quit most of your hobbies. Mm-hmm. And I can give them a really clear picture. And then I say, oh, by the way, you're going to be so stoked to do it, even though all those things are true. Then I feel like I'm fulfilling my life's purpose. I've had some great mentors in my life. Like you said in the intro, I grew up in a really small farming community on the Oregon-Idaho border. Yeah. And I love it. We actually ended up buying a summer house there. So we spend our summers in Idaho. And when I go back, I notice the mentality is a little different. Yeah. Which is, it's not necessarily good or bad. It's just different. It's just, when I go back to Georgia, it's just a different mentality. It's like that everywhere. Yeah. Exactly. So I'm on this mission to say, hey, these people on Instagram that said that they made $10 million their first year in business, there's a couple of things that could be true. One, they're just flat out lying. Right. That's pretty much, I think, the biggest one. Two, they did the equivalent of hitting the lottery and it's never gonna happen again. It's like the equivalent of being playing in the NBA. It's like, is it possible? Very slimly, right? Mm-hmm. So my pattern is find out what you can endure. Okay. And endure it day after day after day after day. And eventually the stars are going to align. Do you ever get a complacent feeling? And I say complacent because I don't want to use the word lazy, but there are just some days where I'm just like, I'm just not feeling it today. Like, how do you get over that hump? Yeah. Or do you feel that? You're like, not really, Alicia. I have days that think back to your beginning days where you were working harder. Where I'll have such an extreme level of conflict. Yeah. Or such a huge problem that I'll kind of back away a little bit. But I think it's really normal what you're talking about with your motivation. Yeah. If I'm you, and I think I've got this down, and so it's tough for me to remember those days where I'm like, you know what, why am I doing this? That's the trick. Is you find out why you're doing it. And you remind yourself, hey, am I doing this for money? Money is a terrible motivator, by the way. It is. It's a terrible motivator. And people think that it's a great motivator. It's not. When push comes to shove, study after study has shown that people will choose something over money. One of the best studies ever done, they hired a bunch of unemployed folks. They had them go dig a hole. They pay a minimum wage. They dig a hole all day long, 8 hours digging holes. And then the last hour, whatever, they'd fill the holes back in.
Oh, man.
They brought them back and they said, hey, we'll double your pay if you do the same thing tomorrow. Half the people show up. Half. They already lost half, but they're double their pay. This happens 2 or 3 days, and they're making like the equivalent of like $5,000 a day to do it, and no one would do it. So if you think about it, I think it's such an interesting study, but it goes to show that, is money the best motivator? Obviously not. Right. These folks were unemployed. They were being offered $5,000 a day, but they cared about their work. They're like, wait a minute, so we're going to spend all this time doing something and then we're going to reverse it? No way, I'm not doing it. And it surprised those folks that they wouldn't do it. They asked them, hey, why won't you do this? They're like, whatever. They didn't understand. But that's exactly it. They didn't find purpose in their work. So on those days, spend a few minutes. And people need breaks. You do not get burned out. I'm not a fan of that.
Yeah.
I'm not the sleep 3 hours a night type of person. Make sure your body's taken care of. Yeah. But remind yourself, hey, what am I teaching my kids? Is there something that my kids they're watching me right now? Mm-hmm. Like, is this for my kids? Is this for the people? What about the people that work for me? They rely on me to put food on their tables. So I think when you find that higher purpose, or not necessarily find, but discover or remember it.
Yeah.
Man, that's a great motivator.
That's good. I feel like my purpose for the podcast and the magazine is really about, community connection and supporting the community and bringing that up. And it's funny because I think I unintentionally do that, because I do. You have hard times where things did not go well today and you're like, why am I doing this? And it's not for the money. Trust me when I say that.
Yeah. I'm a podcaster. I know that.
You do not get into the media business for money. I was actually taught that in college, because I was in television first. And if you go into television, you're doing it because you love it, not to make the money. And it's true. And I did love it. And I still do love it. It's my purpose and passion. But I like that, to remind yourself of why you did it, because it's not the money at the end of the day. Would you ever make your kids go through the hardship, or would you be an angel investor at the beginning when they become 21? Because you think about, you're mentioning, you think about your son, when he gets older, because you learn so much from those hard times, yet it's different. Those are your kids. Everyone says you want to give your kids a better life than you had. Not that you ever had a bad life, but you just want to provide more for them. How are you going to handle that, do you think, when your kids ask you that question? Oh,
this is one of the struggles of my soul, because I didn't grow up with much, and I slept on the floor next to my brother for the first 6 years of my life. Didn't have a bed, and there's a lot of people out there. I lived in South America for 2 years. There's a lot of people out there with much worse. So I can't complain.
Right.
But I didn't come from much, and I wouldn't have it any other way. And so my wife and I talk about this a lot. How do we make it so that our kids can have similar trials or experiences? And I don't think we can, because my wife and I want to enjoy our lives, our houses, our cars. And so there's going to be some coattails there that they're hanging on to.
Yeah.
So we have to find other ways to create kind of this incubator of struggle and trial for them. And I don't know that I have the answer yet, but
you have some time. It's okay.
Yeah. But, my kids talk a lot about wanting to work with me at some point. I hope that I can allow that struggle at some level for them. I want them to earn it. When we earn something, we appreciate it a lot.
100%.
A lot more. I had a business partner recently, and this is still raw for me. But he came to me, and this is a software type product that we're working on. He came to me and he told me, hey, I need this, I need that, like this level of salary, this number, this level of benefits, this number. And I'm like, hey man, this is a startup, right? This is a startup. And I told him, I'm like, I'm not going to rob you of the experience of a startup.
Yeah.
I'm not going to rob you of that, because I think the coolest stories are when we go back and we're like, yeah, man, I remember that struggle. And rarely do I sit here and like talk about, you know, how awesome things. I like talking about the struggle. And so I told him that. 3 days later, he quit.
That goes back to your first lesson we talked about at the beginning of this episode. Surround yourself with those that are going to stay in the long haul.
Exactly.
Yeah. Listen, startup life is a different kind of beast. It really is. My husband has been in the startup life for about 5-6 years now for his career. He came off of a construction company that was one of the top 5 international ones in the world, you know, and left it because he was like, I'm tired of the red tape. He goes to something with no red tape. And he was like, oh my God, we need some red tape, you know, like, but he's learned through each stage and he's worked at different stages of a startup now. And each stage he's taken that to him to learn something to build what he has now, you know? And it goes back like the struggle is real, but it's a real lesson. It's a real success when you go through it. And those failures are important. So how do you deal with the failure and how do you focus on a failure to learn from it, but not focus on a failure to let it overcome your next step?
That's tough. And I've gone both ways. I've had failures that have built me up and I've had failures that have torn me down and, you know, I ended up quitting or whatever. And I think the pivotal aspect of it is, you know, finding out why you're doing it, making sure that that's the best use of your time. But one really cool thing that makes me feel better in this, when you're really, really going through it, this may sound a little insensitive, but I like when I'm struggling with something, I can't sleep at night, or I have somebody saying whatever about me. I like saying, this is the moment. This is the thing that's going to separate me from everybody else. This is what makes me different. That I will go through this and everybody else is home asleep or playing video, whatever. That's why I'm built different, is because I can do this. And this is, to have this clarity is very difficult. When you have people quit on you, when you're having a hard time making payroll, when, you know, whatever the issue is, you have really strained relationships, and you have that clarity of, this is the moment and I'm going to have 1,000 more of them, but this is it right now. This is why I'm going to succeed, is because I fail and I just get back up once more. And then I do it again and again and again. But if you have that, and for me, that's motivating. It's like, yeah, that's right. I can, you know, you're identifying what it is. And the funny thing is that it's true. When you're going through it and you're like, man, I really want to quit. 1,000 other people have done it, but they quit. So then you get to decide. So
opens a path for you almost.
Exactly.
Yeah. Can't let the naysayers knock you down. How do you stay humble?
That's another thing I struggle with. Because there's this balance, right? Yeah. When you're out there investing and building things, you have to have a certain level of confidence and you have to act quickly.
Yeah.
Sometimes if you wait till you have all the information, it's too late. So there's this balance of, you know, confidence and humility. And I don't know that I've you know, struck that balance yet. I definitely need some more humility in my life. But the failures help. Okay. I suffer from a crazy amount of imposter syndrome. Okay. And I used to think like, hey, once, you know, I get to a certain level of wealth or business or whatever, all this is going to go away. And it got worse. You know, one of the deep struggles is I have this voice in my head that says, hey, Allan, you got lucky. And that gets me. Yeah. And so that's one of the reasons why I've done businesses in a bunch of different industries, is because I'm trying to like prove, not to anybody else, but to myself. Yeah. Right. But, so, you know, you got to have that humility, but I think it has to come from the inside, and it has to come from acknowledging where you can learn and where you can improve and where you can get help from others. Yeah. All
of this is relating. Every thing we've talked about goes back to kind of different points you've talked to, surrounding yourself with the people that matter, they're going to make a difference and support you and have your best interest, their best interest in the company at hand. Reminding yourself of the purpose, investing in yourself in the business before monetary, like all of this is related in every aspect of. So you see a pattern with you, which is shown to be successful, but they're very simple almost if you just focus on them and not focus on the monetary win and not focus on, having the best of the best, but staying true to your purpose, I think is the biggest message I've kind of heard from you.
Yeah, I think that and just consistency.
Yeah.
Just whatever your expectations are of business, just like cut it in half and then divide it by 4 or something. Because and then take that and multiply your effort that's going to be required.
Yeah.
So that's it. Like the level of success you think you're going to have is going to be less, and the level of effort that it's going to take is going to be more.
Oh yeah.
But do it anyway. Because at the end of the day, it's not going to be about the size of our house or number of houses. It's going to be about the person that we became and the person that we helped along the way. I love the saying, like, hey, if somebody tells you that money's evil, that person hasn't given enough of it away. So I think if you combine those things, like, hey, I'm gonna be pulled down to earth. The success that I'm gonna have isn't gonna come as fast as I thought, and the effort's gonna be more. You get a real picture of what it's gonna take, and you should do it anyway.
Yeah. What do you think is your next stage and step in life?
I'm going to continue to grow businesses. I'm going to continue to help people. I'm looking to increase my public speaking ability. Okay. So, which has made me very, very uncomfortable, which is weird because I don't need to do it.
Right.
But it's something that's just kind of on my radar. I'm creating an investment fund. In the next 3 to 5 years, I'm going to create an incubator to help software startups find place for resources, both financial and development resources and things like that. And you're
going to write a book?
I'm in the process of writing.
I was going to say, I feel like a book is in your future.
Yep. So first draft's done. It's about failure of all things.
I love it. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it was really interesting. That's what I was focusing on. But for me, I wasn't asking the right questions on failure. And I think that's what it boils down to. You have to ask the right questions, right? And I was asking the emotional questions of how you overcame failure and how did you not let that, just knock you down. And that's what that was the feedback I was getting from business owners. A couple of them said, don't wait for perfection to take that next step because you're going to miss the opportunity in the interim, right? Like go with it, learn from it, and then finesse it as it grows kind of thing. Because that was when I started this podcast. I wanted all of these things lined up. They're like, well, you're going to miss the interviews then. And I did. And I kind of started. I was like, oh, that didn't work. Let's go on to something else. Every day is a different lesson in life, and no matter what aspect you're living at that day. But being a small business owner and entrepreneur is difficult. It's not for the faint of heart, but it's a passion. And I think if you have that passion like you do with anything in life, then you can become successful in that as well.
Absolutely.
Before we leave, Allan, I want to ask you two more questions. Number one, why do you think Arizona and the Valley is such a great place to be an entrepreneur?
I think it's the general sentiment of the people here.
Yeah.
There's a lot of small businesses here.
We thrive and need them here, especially in Scottsdale.
For sure. There's, but I think there's some, I think the financial, political element is a little more welcoming here than in other states. I do business in 15 states. Okay. Everywhere from New York to Nevada, several states in between. And so I've seen firsthand the difference.
Right.
I really like the Phoenix/Arizona economy. Mm-hmm. I think you can get something up and going without incurring a bunch of debt or raising a lot of money. Mm-hmm. But the small business community here in the Valley is It's awesome. It's something I'm trying to get more into, but it's very supportive. It doesn't feel really competitive. It doesn't feel like it's me versus you, even within your specific industries.
Right.
Like there's a lot of my best friends are my quote unquote competitors out here.
It's something unique. And I'm glad you say that, because if you own businesses all around the country, you know, I've said it too. I've lived all over. I've lived in the biggest major cities from Atlanta, DC, Chicago, Houston. You know, I've lived in all of those. And let me tell you, people are out for you. They're not out there with you. And it's to the point where you become secretive, right? Like you don't want to tell people what you're doing or thriving or trying to do because you're afraid they're going to steal your idea and then take you down in the process. I've never felt that here. And I think that goes to show a lot of who we are as a community, most importantly.
Yeah. For sure.
All right, last question I ask all my guests, because it teaches me things too that I don't get to see. What is your favorite Scottsdale vibe? What's your favorite thing? Because Scottsdale has a unique vibe, as we just mentioned.
Oh, it definitely does. And Scottsdale's so unique because I mean, there's a lot of diversity, like financial diversity, business diversity, like, and Scottsdale has this, like, I think my favorite vibe is like this, as I'm kind of processing the question here. It has this like folks have like a chip on their shoulder almost. It's like, but it's a chip like, you know, we've got some prestige. Yeah. Like we've got a high standard. It's got to be that. It's got to be like.
That's interesting, yeah.
There's some places, you know, where people are from and they're like, well, I'm not, you know.
I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'm from Arizona. You'll just say the state, not the city.
Yeah. But Scottsdale's kind of got that, you know, and I travel quite a bit. I spend a lot of time golfing, and everyone I play, if I'm in, you know, East Coast, San Francisco, wherever, people are talking about Scottsdale. Yeah. So I think it's got to be that.
That's fair. That's fair. We moved here from Reno, which is great. Everyone that's from Reno, but I like to tell people it's like I lived outside of Tahoe.
Yeah. Yep.
You know, kind of thing. Thank you so much. Where can we find more about you? I love that you're taking on social media and really making a truth platform, and what we see is what's the, you know, what we get from these people. What's one thing that where we can find you and learn more? Yeah,
it's going to be kind of ironic, but I'm very active on Instagram. So at Real Allan Draper, I'm trying to set the record straight. So, that's where my demographic is. I'm a pretty easy guy to find, but that's, I have a website, allandraper.com, but most active on Instagram.
Perfect. We'll put all this in the description of the episode. You can catch us on YouTube as well for our podcast channel, Scottsdale Vibes. Allan, thank you so much for just caring, for giving back your knowledge. Congratulations on your success and your failures, by the way, because it taught you where you are. And I look forward to seeing what else you're going to do for us here.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Stay tuned. We'll have the calendar of events coming up next. Well, happy Easter to all of you that celebrate. The Hide and Peep at Scottsdale Quarter is happening this Saturday, March 30th. Music, crafts, face painting, and balloon twisting are free for everyone to come enjoy throughout the event, but you do have to register to go Easter egg hunting. It's just $5 for a basket, and it includes all the eggs you can find. So a great event, and of course, the Easter Bunny is going to be there. It is Easter brunch are all of the resorts and hotels around town and all the amazing restaurants that Scottsdale's so lucky to have. So be sure to get your reservations today. So go ahead and call about that. And it is the calm before the storm, because guess what? We have another event heading to town. The Final Four is coming to Phoenix, and we are so excited to welcome all of these new guests. So plan accordingly, and I have a list of all of the events that we get to go to from let's see, the Fan Fest, there's music concerts, basketball events, and games. So be sure to check the list of events in the description of this episode to see what you're going to do. And again, plan accordingly, because traffic is going to be terrible with all these people there. Have a wonderful week. Keep vibing, Scottsdale, and I'll see you around town.